Greetings, this is Ty Brown with Athletic Director U. I'm here on campus at University of the Incarnate Word, which is a beautiful campus. I'm joined by Dr. Tom Evans and Dr. Brian Wickstrom. Dr. Wickstrom is the Director of Athletics here. Of course, Dr. Evans is the President. Greetings, gentlemen. Thanks for having us on campus here.
Thanks for being here.
Now, you guys have done a lot, and the campus has grown in terms of athletics, and you both came in the same year. That summer, I guess, of 2017 it was. Now, the first question I have for you, Dr. Evans, is about athletics on campus. It's grown to be a priority for college presidents, right? It's something that you can't let go by the wayside because it's the window to the world for the university. And when we talk about athletics, there's a murmur out there. I've heard, I don't know if you guys have heard that, you know, that college campuses are still trying to justify the existence and the expense of college athletics on campus. You seem to understand the importance of it, the stuff you've done at Carroll College, what you're doing here. Can you tell us how athletics fits into your vision as a college president?
It's a great question. I think for any campus, it is what many of us term the window to the campus because it's high publicity. It's what people see. It's very often what they read in the paper, or is the success of the programs, or what's happening with student athletes, what's happening with coaches. And I think that's true of any campus. But I think at the University of the Incarnate Word, it's especially important because, you know, as a Catholic institution, I like to use a biblical analogy that we are many parts, but we are one body. And as you know, this campus is quite interesting. It's really more of a system as a university. We have 2 campuses in Mexico, study centers in Europe, and even in San Antonio now with 5 professional schools. We're spread out all over San Antonio. So as we talk about becoming what I term one word, and as we rally as an institution that is unique in so many ways and has these many diverse parts, athletics helps us to become an even stronger community. It's a rallying point for us. And in fact, we'll see that whether it's within academics, we actually have almost a contest among our schools. The different schools have tailgate parties that they host for all the other academics. They're trying to one-up each other, but it helps to build community. And we have viewing parties at our campuses in Mexico where all of our students and faculty and staff there get to cheer on Los Cardinales. And it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of pride in that, a lot of spirit. So it's something that brings us together. And I think when it's done really well and done well academically, done well on the field, on the court, it really does provide a sense of spirit and unification for a campus.
It's interesting how the way you describe that. You know, you have different campuses, and say, you know, history or German department does something well and gets awarded. Well, the other academic departments may or may not celebrate along with that department. But if football or basketball or tennis does something well, that's a rallying point that all those campuses and all those different places can celebrate. I ask you, Dr. Wickstrom, thinking about athletics, right? The window to the world for a university. The purpose on many higher education institutions for athletics is to enhance the academic mission of the institution. Tell me about how you found when you took this job. You've been here, 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years now, how you helped to execute that vision that he has just explained to us.
I think if you look at the mission of the institution, and athletics falls right into it, we want to deliver a great student experience for all the students. We want to deliver a top student athlete experience for all the student athletes that come here. But if athletics can help grow the brand of UIW, you know, in San Antonio, in Texas, across the nation, I mean, we want to do it. And that means if we win football games and the nuns request tickets to come watch us play football, which they often do,
right,
and they come to basketball games, and we can help grow the brand so that, you know, they talk about admission applications going up and people are growing interest, website views for people wanting to see where Incarnate Word is if you make the NCAA basketball tournament. So for us doing things the right way and graduating our student athletes helps us grow the brand and just helps the perception of making how great this campus is and this institution is.
All right. Thinking about that summer of 2017, right, which is a big change in leadership for here at UIW. You were contacted early summer, and you look on campus, and and you ended up starting in August, right? I think longer, and then you came in around June. And so you're looking into the leadership on campus to see if this is somewhere where you think you can help the campus be successful in enhancing the academic mission through athletics. Tell me about what you looked at in that summertime, because it was near the same time when you guys were looking.
I was actually contacted in April. Okay. He wasn't hired until June. So I didn't do anything until I found out who the new president was going to be. And so when I was contacted in April, then in June, I started researching who this new president is. I started looking at comments of the board of trustees. I started looking at the school where he was coming from. And it showed it was a person that was very caring, high character, high integrity, who was passionate about athletics. And to me, that's a perfect recipe for a successful athletics program. But I had a really great boss in Chancellor White, who oversees the California state system now. And Dr. Evans has a lot of similarities. High integrity, high character. He's very inclusive. He cares about the students, number one. And I had such a great experience working for Chancellor White. When I found out he got president, I knew this would be a great fit for me.
Right. Dr. Evans, you come in, and I know when you were looking and we talked a little bit about Mike Van Diest and Carroll College and the success that happened there on campus. When you came in and you see that he comes from a university that really cared about athletics, it had to be something you were definitely, like you said, it was something you were definitely interested in. For you coming in, and athletics is important too. You come in, and like you mentioned, this is a unique setup in terms of the system that you guys have here at UIW. Brian comes in, and I'm sure you heard Brian says, hey, if you allow us to have our funding where it is, we'll support ourselves with the money we bring in. That had to be, in terms of athletics, and that had to be a unique situation, unique request by the athletic director. And it seems like things are going in that direction now. Tell me about what you look for when you came in as a president and you're looking at the different leaders on campus and you look at athletics, and here's a new guy here to build culture in college athletics.
Brian was essentially my first hire here, and it was 2 weeks. 17 days into my time here, and looking at his resume and seeing the experiences that he had at all types of institutions at different kinds of levels, and in the United States, knowing that he was very innovative, a very effective fundraiser. I think what was really important to me, and understanding this early on, is that Brian's very mission-driven and market-smart. So from a mission standpoint, if we think about student-athlete safety, and that was a high level of concern for us, especially with our playing fields. So we knew we had to have a new playing surface with the football field, and we wanted it to be the most safe field that we could get, and we did. And I think that the results speak for themselves. We're undefeated on that field in football so far, but it was very interesting to see that with that, Dr. Wickstrom said, we need to get some funding for that. We got a very good sponsor in Methodist for the field, and in creating it, also aligned it to a strategic priority, which was to acknowledge, celebrate, and further our service to the men and women who serve us in the military. So Dr. Wickstrom reached out to the folks that own the brand for Military City USA, got approval to put that on the field, as well as on our new basketball court, which is sponsored by Christus and is a much safer playing surface as well. But then branded it with end zones that are camouflage, red and black. And that actually got play on SportsCenter with, I think, 128,000 views. So it was something that was good for the students, it was good for the institution, and ultimately it helped us do well athletically, but also promote us better. And I think the same could be true for what happened with baseball and softball. We needed new fields there, student safety, but also just performance. And so HEB sponsored the baseball and softball fields. And lo and behold, not soon after that, we beat Notre Dame and win the Shamrock Classic, and then beat Texas A&M in College Station, and then beat the University of Texas. And we're getting a lot of play for that. We're excited about Coach Schott's era coming in. And so it's mission driven, but market smart. And it gets the results that you want, but all with dollars that have been raised externally to fund these projects, so that we're not taking anything from academics, but we're improving everything at the institution as we can with athletics.
Which from my experience with presidents and with academics and faculty, that has to be a dynamic that is celebrated.
You know, we want to make sure that all ships are rising with the rising tide, and I think it's very clear that we have had a lot more exposure, and that has happened, I think, regionally, within the state and nationally, with what's happening at UIW.
Yeah, I wonder, in thinking about this national exposure, this question is for both of you. I'll ask you first, Dr. Evans. Catholic institution, in terms of Division I, in terms of football playing, like in 1,000 miles almost, 1,200 miles. There's not another one here. Of course, that's all state of Texas, right, type thing. And I wonder about recruiting, right, for academics and athletics. To how does that play into when you want to bring students in for athletics and academics?
Well, thank you for recognizing that, because it is a really interesting point for us in terms of branding. So sometimes Dr. Wickstrom and I have our best conversations watching something together. And one day we're actually watching our sons at a baseball camp here on campus. And I said to him, or I asked him the question, do you know where the next closest Division I Catholic institution is? And we thought about it, and he said, I think it's maybe St. Louis University. And I said, well, let's map it out. That afternoon, it took very little time. That afternoon, I had a map with the logos of every Division I Catholic institution in the country, football or not. It's worth seeing. There's a lot of real estate that is kind of owned by the University of the Incarnate Word in being the only Division I Catholic institution in a huge radius. So then I think there's terrific responsibility with that, because we're kind of entrusted then to say, well, if you're the only one, you better make the most of that, and you better do that really well. So what does that mean about your brand academically? What does that mean about your student athletes, your coaches, your presence in being the Catholic institution that is playing at this level in this huge geographic space? And so we've been working on and planning on really making the most of that to be that kind of institution that people say, well, it's University of Incarnate Word graduates, this is how their academic programs are run, this is how their athletic programs are run, and that it's very high quality, and that they know that as an institution where values are very important, a values-centered institution, that our graduates are also values-centered through the rest of their lives. So I think we have a unique branding, not only opportunity but experience that we're working with now as a relatively young D1 program.
Right. I'd imagine, real quick follow-up, throughout the admissions process, through everybody on the same page in terms of that's important, to represent the Catholic brand as an institution in terms of Division I, when you're going out to find these great students that come in with these GPAs and these high scores and from all over the country.
Well, I think for coaches too. I think Dr. Wickstrom, one real strength he has is hiring great coaches. So I think you can see that there are coaches who are attracted to being at an institution where values are important, where faith is important, and where there's the development of the whole person and also service to the community. So we actually require service to the community, and we don't really have to require it because it's a part of who we are. But you see the coaches really taking hold of that too. And it's an opportunity to showcase the teams in service to the community, but it's a really important part of then the development of athletics in general, but then of course the individual students. And I really am impressed with what Dr. Wickstrom has done in hiring.
It's interesting. Every answer ties back to how these things tie together. It's very interesting. Dr. Wickstrom, on that, what we just said, the 900 mile and the 1,200 mile in terms of non-football playing Division I schools.
I see the biggest impact when you talk to Eric Morris, our football coach, Carson Cunningham, our basketball coach, and now even, Ryan, our baseball coach, I mean, they have a special niche. They can take out our profile of our institution to these Catholic high schools all throughout Texas and the Midwest. And there are students that want to go to Catholic college, and we're recruiting some of the best student athletes that go to Catholic high schools. I mean, you know how successful the Catholic high school is in football in California. I mean, it's phenomenal. 128 game win streak, but we're getting interest from student athletes that go to those Catholic high schools that want to be a part of an up-and-coming Division I program that competes for championships.
Right. I want to ask a little bit about your background. You've been at a number of different institutions in the college athletics profession for 21 years, worked with Mike Alden, worked with some influential elephants in the profession. Talk to me about how you learn everywhere you go, right? All places aren't the best, all places aren't the worst, but you take a little bit from everywhere. Tell me about how your approach to leadership based on some of the things you've learned throughout your career.
I've learned a lot about the people and how important relationships are, in terms of having a president that supports athletics, having a president that's open to communication. That, for me, I've learned to always keep Dr. Evans in the loop when something's going to happen before it happens. But I like to be with people that want to help athletics be successful. That allows us to be a successful program and deliver a top student athlete experience. I mean, Mike Alden taught me never let your boss get caught off guard, right? Chancellor White's like, hey, we got to make sure you're always looking out for the student. So all those elements that I've learned, we're being able to work with Dr. Evans to deliver a great student athlete experience here, which, I mean, we've had a lot of success. Not because Dr. Evans and I have never played a game here at UIW, but we've watched a lot of wins because we've got some great people coaching student athletes and getting top kids. So I've learned to really have that type of experience working with the president, and it's been phenomenal.
I wonder about when you're looking at a candidate for athletics director, or when you're researching the person you're going to work with. Tell me about how important that background is, who they've worked for, obviously what they've done is important, but who they've worked for, I guess, really is a real big thing. I worked a long time with football coaches, and they really look at what kind of tree do you come from. Tell me about that in terms of the president's perspective.
It's definitely important, and I know also in speaking with Chancellor White about Brian before hiring him to hear his perspective, and of course he was glowing in his reference for Dr. Wickstrom, and what he shared with me has come true. But I think it's also all of those experiences, as you said before, that from the different places that you've been, you learn new things and you can apply them where you are. And I think those experiences have certainly been applied here. But there are a lot of intangibles. I mean, you can look at kind of these metrics of success. So you're looking at ticket sales, sponsorship revenue, APR. I mean, you're looking at all these things that are really measurable. But I think the thing that you don't oftentimes know, or that you can't know, and that you try to learn from reference checks, but that are really nice to, that for me are really important. And I think that also make it a good fit for an institution like the University of the Incarnate Word is care. I mean, it's true compassion and love for those that are working here, and then also for the students. So that's been an interesting thing in our time together, as we do spend a good deal of time together, even on the sidelines or in the stands, which I think are sometimes the best opportunities, because then you know how connected someone is with the students. Tell me that student's story, and like, okay, I can tell you all about that student, but I can also tell you about that student's parents. I can tell you, about what's happening, and that oftentimes I know with Dr. Wickstrom that the care that he has is not measured on wins and losses. I think the wins come, and that may sound cliche, but I think it's really true that with what you put into the student athletes and the care, the compassion, the love, the concern that you have for those students then plays out in competition. And I think that's something that starts at the top for athletics, and then you see in hiring the coaches, and that the coaches have, and that's the culture that we're building. I think that's the culture that we largely have now, but that we want to continue into the future.
I wonder about that with hiring as a president, right? because you never know. I mean, they could have all the benchmarks, and in the interview, it seems like everything is well, and you get on campus and you're still trying to figure the person out. Do you have a method? I'm sure you made plenty of hires, not necessarily in athletics, but across the board. Do you have a method of instant evaluation as you're onboarding someone new, and then as the relationship grows?
I'm going to surprise you with my answer.
Yes, sir.
We have a secret weapon.
Okay.
Her name is Sister Walter. We actually have a mission an interview for Mission Fit, and Sister Walter Marr is a big part of that. But we also have with the Sisters of Charity of the Incarnate Word, which is of course where our name comes from, with the University of the Incarnate Word. And the Sisters of Charity of the Incarnate Word are very much even a part of things here, whether it's Dr. Wickstrom working alongside Sister Kathleen Coughlin on working with other sponsored ministries for their support and connections, or working very closely with Sister Walter. And yesterday, actually, we were at a President's Advisory Council meeting, and I was asking for updates around the room, and Dr. Wickstrom said, well, we have an update. We have a sister section. So, there's a school that has Sister Jean, that has ACE. We have a whole section of sisters. So we have some secret weapons. But all joking aside, we're looking for a mission fit. So even after having our own opportunity to evaluate potential candidates, we also listen very, very closely and very carefully to what a member of our sponsoring congregation has to say about the right fit, and then is also actually in contact with and has retreats with the different teams, and is involved. And that's a part of part of that holistic development of a student.
They have a pulse of across the board, the university, student athletes.
She's very in tune with athletics. She meets with all of our coaches annually. She's very in tune.
That's important. Talk about a little bit about the communication between you two. You come in and you really have to learn how. This is probably more for you. You really have to learn how the president likes to be communicated with, right? In terms of how responding to text messages, whether it's a phone call, email. Do I need to go to the office real quick? Tell me about how you guys have learned that aspect of communication between the president and athletic director.
We communicate often, depending on the importance of it. It may be he and I text back and forth all the time. We call each other, but we see each other often. We actually seldom ever meet in the office. I mean, for some reason, he's not in, I'm not in, but we communicate often. And I think probably the first 6 months, it took me to get a good feel of exactly what his communication style was. I mean, he oversees not just one campus, high schools, campuses. So for me, I don't take every little detail to him. I make sure I keep him abreast of any major things that might happen. But I try not to bog down some of the details because he doesn't care what shoe size our kid didn't have, whatever the fact is. So I just try to keep him abreast of the major things so that anything that could happen that could impact the institutional brand, he's aware of. But I mean, we're texting all the time, random texts, phone calls. He hates them probably sometimes when I send them to him, but I try to keep him in the loop, and I think we have a great communication channel set up.
Yeah, how was that for you, right? You're on board, and you guys are both on board.
I mean, the communication in this day and age is very interesting, because there are so many medium of communication that we can communicate in a lot of different ways. And some of it is maybe walking across campus, some may be sitting in the stands, some may be on a tour, meeting with a potential donor, a sponsor, but we text frequently. I mean, it's actually probably a daily occurrence, maybe multiple times a day, and it keeps it short. And part of, I think, what is helpful then in that kind of communication is that level of trust. That trust that I know these things are being taken care of. If there's something that I need to know,
the text will say, call
then
me.
I know. Well, it will say, do you have a minute?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Do you have a second? And that's when I know, no matter what I'm doing, I
need to take this.
I'll call him. But very, very respectful of my time in that. But then also just knowing kind of what I need to know, what I'd like to know, as I do. But also, thank you to the president who advise no surprises, because you never want to be surprised, and never shield any bad news, because that's important too. But it's very, what I've experienced is about student care and the individual,
Very
whether
important.
it's a student or not.
Right. I wonder about in that communication. He showed me the basketball court and the lining, the plaid, and the three stripes represent the sisters. And like, how much of that does he come and say, I have an idea? Or do you say, hey, I thought about this thing. Hey, when we built this, tell me about that when you're talking about the number of facilities and how you go into designing, putting uniquities that are specific to UIW.
I think that actually happens in a number of ways. And I think that I want decisions to certainly be with athletics and with the programs and the coaches, but that doesn't mean the seeds aren't planted. So I do remember introducing to Dr. Wickstrom, if you didn't already know, but also to coaches, to say, do you know about this tartan that was designed by one of our schools? And in fashion design, that program actually came up with this tartan that has incredible meaning. The three white lines in it, the three white stripes, represent the original three sisters of Charity of the Incarnate Word, who, from them, so much goodness has happened. So it's a nod to them, but there's meaning in the river in the tartan as well. And so I remember seeing the early versions of the court had that tartan really probably almost too prominent. And so now, the trim of it, and I don't think I ever saw the final one. It's just, they said, here it is, take a look at it. And it's really excellent. And the thing I love about it is I think that you can use that smaller stripe, if you will, from the tartan that has terrific meaning to those of us in the community. And it can probably be used on uniforms and in striping as well. But I love that they took something that was designed by our students in the fashion design program, and now that's applied to athletics. So it's another way that we tie our heritage and traditions and love and respect for the sisters together with the gratitude for an educational program and the faculty leaders and students who designed that, and now get to use that and celebrate it in a unique way that probably nobody else has. I would liken it to the Argyle that University of North Carolina has used in different ways. I know Tennessee has their checkerboard. So we have a unique tartan.
Right. When facilities, right, are a big thing here, you guys have improved a lot. Tell me about that when you go through a couple renditions. No, we're not ready for him to see that yet. Let me tell me about that process.
We've been, the culture that's been created is we're very inclusive and intentional on who we include on campus. I mean, before we ever released the court, we showed it to the President's Advisory Council. But, we tried to do things creative because we're trying to be, he's a president that would let us take a little bit of a chance because he likes some new cutting edge stuff. So we try to be creative, things that help us grow the brand in a positive way. So, I mean, with Zach Carlton, Richard Jan, Kerry Gold, our group sits down and comes up with ideas. And we all kind of have to agree on it before we're going to take it to the president. But we've been trying to be very creative because it's a great time to be a Cardinal. And when we come up with these new cutting edge ideas, the coaches love it, the student athletes love it more. I've heard more compliments from the football players about the basketball court than I heard them about the camouflage end zones. So it's a really way to be really inclusive in what we're doing.
But I know he also knows when he brings something to me, it's usually, I want to know what's in it for academics and what's in it for the larger community. And so there's always that opportunity. So, human performance can use it for this, or this might be helpful with nutrition. This might be, how can we tie in with academics or what it means to the larger community? Because so we're not thinking in a silo about athletics.
Right, and that's important, right? Especially for a campus that has campuses everywhere. It's very
Correct.
important. I asked a couple questions here before we wrap up. We did a video, you and I did with Coach Morris here, and one of the things I found interesting in that video was that he learned a lot from you. Obviously, he was the first-time head coach, so there was probably a lot to learn from the athletics director. But I wonder, in terms of AD to president, are there aspects that you guys and your relationship matures here, at UIW. Are there things you've learned from Dr. Evans here? You're obviously experienced in fundraising, and fundraising is important to you, and athletics is important to you. But are there some aspects in terms of you that you'll take with you to 10, 15 years from now as you grow?
I think probably one of the most important things I've learned, and this is, remember, he got here 17 days before I got to campus, right? So we both inherited this culture on campus that neither one of us really knew what it was till we got here. But one of the things I think that's been really beneficial for me as an athletic director is being inclusive and intentional with Doug Ensley, the CFO, with Edie Cogdell, the comptroller, with Annette Thompson from Human Resources, and trying to keep them in the loop as things are happening on campus. And I think that's really helped us get people to buy in to us, and it's helped build trust. And I know that I think when Dr. Evans sees how we handle things, I think I earn trust with him so that if a big decision comes up, I think he does trust me more because he sees we're intentional, we're inclusive, and we're thinking about things before we make decisions. That's been a huge help for me. It's been a great learning experience for me.
That has to be a benefit to you, right? Somebody coming on campus that wants to learn about those different aspects, and especially when you say they bring something to you and you want to know how this is going to help academics too, right? I imagine that's something that you figure is an asset in terms of the relationship between you two.
And I think it is about relationship. It's about our relationship, but the relationship with everybody on campus, and how can we improve that and really make it exemplary, because as we know, that's not always the case on a campus. So I am trying to ensure that we're inclusive, as radically inclusive as we can be, so that we have that kind of buy-in, and especially with the complexity that we have as a system, we have to be that inclusive of everyone in many ways that I think are not always the case on campuses, because we're pretty spread out geographically, as we talked about in the beginning, but also to try to be innovative. And we know that we don't have necessarily the resources of a Power 5 institution, but we want to be there as much as we can. And so how can we be innovative? How can we do something that's different and unique, come at it from a different angle, and really be creative, be innovative about it? And that's what I really have come to rely on Dr. Wickstrom to come up with these ideas and angles that they've worked.
Yeah. Let's really do it right. Right, exactly. I mean, that's the interesting thing, right? In terms of what you offer to student athletes, I mean, those discussions have to be interesting, right? Presenting to you an idea about something that other schools who may be similar in terms of where they are in Division I, and the idea is like, this is a big time idea, right? I mean, those conversations have to be interesting, right?
They are interesting, and they're hand in hand with academic excellence. That's the other thing, is it not cutting corners in any way to be able to say, we want our students to excel on the field, on the court, but we really want them to excel in the classroom. So to hire coaches who are checking in, walking the halls, when I hear a faculty member say, I didn't know that your coaches walked the halls to make sure that students were in class or study hall time. And then to hear a coach, and when they say, what I'm most proud of is that we're at the top of the Southland Conference in GPA for our sport. That's the kind of thing that, or here's the improvement that we made, and we're very intentional about it. And now let's see how that translates to every other superlative that we can have, and celebrate all the wins that we can get. If we're number one in the NCAA in free throw percentage, let's celebrate that, which we were. So there are some neat things that can happen along the way as you're building and progressing, and I think all those things build on each other.
They do. Small victories lead to big victories, right?
But I think the focus on academics gives us credibility with the academic side of campus and the faculty members. And it's true, I mean, our 3.22 GPA for our student athletes, but when our coaches hold their own study halls and make sure kids are doing right academically, they have credibility. So if there's ever an incident that comes up, there might be a dispute or an incident with a student athlete, our coaches have credibility. And I think that's where it's about trust, earning trust from the coach and the faculty members.
An excellent conversation. I'll wrap with this. Dr. Evans said something earlier, and I wonder about, in terms of being an athletics director, if he's at the game with you and he said, tell me about that kid, right? The first time he asked that question, you knew about the kid, but did you go home that night and study everybody on everybody's roster so you can always answer the question?
That's one thing about, we have a pretty good family environment built with our student athletes, our coaches, to where you get to know a little bit about something. So at least I know some tidbit about every student athlete if I can. I haven't always got it right every single time, but 600 student athletes, we've tried to make a good dent in it, for sure.
And I'll tell you, someone who Dr. Wickstrom ran track at Kansas State. And I love his story. He says, I never won anything, but it was my experience. And he talks about how we have to make sure that our students have that great experience no matter what, whether they're winning or not, because this is their time. This is their time as a Division I athlete, and we need to make that really special for them. But I'll tell you, because he had that experience in track and field, I know a lot more about track and field than I ever knew before. So it's neat to have that connection too, to also learn more about athletics and about our athletes, because those stories are just, that's so rich, and that's a wonderful thing to share with others in the community, because it's people love those the great stories, and there's so many of them that happen with so many student athletes here every year, every semester, every week.
All right. Well, gentlemen, it sounds like there's a great dynamic here between president and athletics director, and I really appreciate you joining us here on Athletic Director U.
Thank the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Mm-hmm. That was Dr. Thomas Evans. He is the president here at University of the Incarnate Word, and Dr. Brian Wickstrom is the athletics director. And of course, I am Ty Brown with Athletic Director U. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today.